So I think we're seeing tip of the iceberg on that, Debbie. I mean, I've been following a lot of influencers like yourself on LinkedIn. I am part of a review course that I'm doing for Stanford on ethical AI. I could not join that course because they were probably full, but they were kind enough to let me review the content. And I think few of people we know in common are part of that course, which are talking about ethics and AI, which is a very, very important topic. I think we have taken for granted this uptake for IoT. I think we are doing the same for the AI as well. So it's got two aspects, right? I mean, one is for people like myself, for you, who want to use AI and these machine learning models to improve our productivity, where often then more we may find ourselves compelled to putting some documents or some text onto these models to get some insights or run some tests without being assured on how the data is going to be used, right? That's the biggest question. And secondly, for the enterprises like telecoms, which are rolling out these AI tools for their own productivity, like automation, and how do they ensure that the data that they are using is going to be really kept for themselves or it's not going to be shared with other companies in the similar domain? How do you make sure there's no data poisoning happening? How do you make sure there's no data biases, right? So some of the frameworks that I've looked at, I think NIST did a great one recently called the NIST, I would say, Risk Management Framework, or the NIST RMF. We have seen in the past couple of weeks, actually, a lot of these regulations coming from the White House. I think, Biden did something. We've seen something in the UK as well. Regulations are catching up, but do we really believe that the technology would follow the regulations? I think, how do you enforce that when a company is embracing a certain AI tool to automate certain use cases, they are being forced to comply and run an assessment based on a framework? So I think that becomes a question that while it's important to have a free hand as you're deploying technology, especially AI, for your use cases or for your own productivity, how do you make sure you do it responsibly? And I think we are still collectively looking to find an answer to that question because a lot of people are still either two sides, which one side is, okay, we need heavy regulation, nothing goes past before we pass this. And the second side is probably say, we don't care about it. We are going to go ahead. We are going to deploy these models. We're going to make them more efficient. We are going to have what we saw with Gemini coming in, which is now the context of the video and the voice and all that. But how is that data being stored? How is that being used? I mean, that's a big question mark. And I think somewhere this needs to be checked. And I think there has to be sort of a dialogue which needs to happen between the public and the private companies to see where do we draw the line. Is okay, it's a great tool to have, but are we ready to really roll it out to mass public? I mean, do we have the right data privacy controls that make sure that the data is not leaked to other users or companies? And I think the same applies for the enterprises, right? When they are embracing these tools and technologies, how do they make sure that their data is secure? How do they know that these tools are really ethical and there are no biases built into it? So long debate, but I think in short, I see it as being a catch-up to the technology that are being rolled out and the frameworks while there. And I've seen a lot of them. I'm sure you see probably every day a new framework being posted. But how good is that framework if it's not being enforced? I think that's the question I'm still struggling to answer for myself is how do you enforce that? And I think that's going to be $1 million question.